The adults stayed up late. Though the vent was closed, Harry could hear them because they were talking loudly, which they often did when they had too much to drink. Aunt Petunia actually remained sober. It was her husband and sister-in-law that indulged themselves. However, she always forced herself to laugh at Aunt Marge's jokes and complimented her, which the other woman ate up. Harry sometimes wondered if Aunt Petunia really liked Aunt Marge. He always noticed how the woman sloshed her drinks, and she was disgusted by how Marge allowed Ripper to eat at the table, insisting on using Aunt Petunia's fine china to serve him. Aunt Petunia's eyes would twitch, and Harry knew she was restraining herself from cleaning up the stains with great difficulty. He knew Dudley didn't like Aunt Marge. He only appeared to dote on her because she gave him money and expensive gifts, and he would probably inherit from her, as she was a spinster and didn't have children of her own. Aunt Marge didn't seem too perturbed by Ripper's disappearance at first. She assumed he was having a high old time chasing that cat. Filthy creatures, cats, Aunt Marge bellowed. I don't know why people consider them cleaner than dogs. They lick their arse and then they lick your face. How hygienic is that, I ask you? Aunt Petunia agreed. Harry knew Aunt Petunia didn't think any animal was clean. There was only one request she had denied of her sons, and that was for a dog. She wouldn't let him have any pet, not even a goldfish. He remembered how Dudley had thrown a tantrum for 3 hours. He even made himself sick, and he had been puzzled when, after all that effort, his mother had still said no, and his father even supported it. What book is that you have there, Marge? Uncle Vernon changed the subject, feeling it was going into dangerous territory, for he knew Petunia's feelings about the subject. Of course, Petunia was one of those women who knew when to speak and when to not, but still, he liked avoiding any potential trouble. Oh, it is what we are reading in my book club, Marge replied. I had complained about how we read too many romance novels. I was sick and tired of all that trash. That silly Sarah Meadows, she was miffed. She is the one that decides what we read. She is a harlot. I'm sure her relationship with her personal trainer is not innocent. However, I am a woman to be reckoned with. Sarah may be the president, but I carry some weight. I don't doubt it, Uncle Vernon replied. Harry didn't doubt it either. The woman was a fat pig. I've always said you and I should become business partners, Uncle Vernon continued, laying on his charm so thick Harry wanted to barf. Aunt Marge laughed a surprisingly girlish laugh and said something Harry didn't hear. Then he heard her say, Anyway, I suggested we should read some nonfiction. Anne Marie, she is the one whose husband ran away with a receptionist, backed me, saying she would also like it if we read literature from other countries. This was the book we decided on as a result. It is a true crime book written by an American fellow named Ellison Oswalt. It is called Kentucky Blood. How is it? Uncle Vernon asked. Meh, Aunt Marge replied. It is better than having to read another romance novel. It is rather gruesome, and this Oswalt fellow is rather full of himself. Supposedly he helped uncover some information that led to the perpetrators being arrested, and now he thinks he can walk on water. Uncle Vernon grunted. Aunt Petunia said, Oh, I can't read books like that. They would give me nightmares. I think people who write true crime are a bunch of ghouls. What type of person goes around and digs into someone else's tragedy so he can make money off of it? True, Aunt Marge agreed. You were always a sensitive soul, Petunia. I noticed that about you the first time Vernon introduced you to me. I pride myself on knowing people, and I told Vernon, You will have to treat her well, Vernon. She is a very sensitive soul. In the darkness, Harry made a face as soppy compliments were exchanged. He held his pillow over his ears. Finally, they went to bed. Aunt Marge had called out to Ripper. One of the neighbors, annoyed at being woken up, had yelled at her. She had yelled some rude things back and had intimidated the neighbor that he decided it was best to drop the complaints. By now, she was worried about Ripper. After an unsuccessful search, where Uncle Vernon even rode around the neighborhood to look for him, they returned home. Uncle Vernon tried to console her, saying they did have a pet door, a souvenir installed by the prior owners. Aunt Petunia always worried about robbers gaining entrance into the house, and it had been on Uncle Vernon's to-do list to remove it, but he never got around to it, and now He was glad. The adults went to bed. Aunt Petunia was the last to go up, tidying up the spill she hadn't dared clean in Marge's presence. The house became still. Harry listened to the sounds of the night. He heard the clock in the hall chime the hours. Suddenly he heard the door latch to the door unlock. It creaked open. Harry got up and went out, expecting to see Emma or Nicole. He stopped abruptly in his tracks when he found himself face to face with Mr. Boogie. He opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. Mr. Boogie's eyes seemed to glow red in the darkness, and his mouth seemed to smile slightly. It was, for him, probably meant to be friendly, though it just made him look hungry. Suddenly, all the images of Harry's dreams flitted through his head, all the feelings of abandonment he felt. Then he felt something warm, a fuzzy feeling of comfort. He understood that Mr. Boogie was communicating with him. Though he didn't say it in words, he had communicated to Harry that he would never abandon him. All he had to do was be a good little child and obey everything Mr. Boogie commanded of him. The children appeared behind him, and Mr. Boogie gestured to Harry that he was to go down into the basement again. Harry stared at him a moment before nodding. "We're going to do something a little different tonight, Harry," Emma replied. "Gretel here is going to play for us." She gestured to a girl Harry hadn't met before, a blonde girl with long braids dressed in old-fashioned clothes, who had a bruised face. "Oh," Harry said, a little disappointed, but not wanting to be rude, smiled. "Okay, don't worry," Emma replied, seemingly always in tune to Harry's thoughts. "We'll watch a movie afterwards. There are only 2 left. It is just that when Mr. Boogie adopted Gretel, he did things differently in those days. She didn't make a movie." "What did you do?" Harry asked. "I played him a song on my piano, which I had written just for him," Gretel replied in a very thick accent. "Tonight I'm going to play it for you." The children sat down on the floor and looked up attentively as Gretel went up to Dudley's old child's piano. She started playing a beautiful, though oddly melancholy tune on it. As she played, she sang a song that accompanied it. Harry didn't understand the words because it was in a different language. Then something strange had happened. Just like with Mr. Boogie, images started appearing in Harry's head. He saw Gretel inside a church. She was singing a solo, and everyone looked up at her in admiration. Harry felt her happiness, her love of music, the joy of the escape it provided for her. The image changed. There was a large man, her father. She was cowering in a corner. He was enraged. Her mother was trying to calm him down, and he smacked her, causing her to fall to the ground. He took off his belt and started hitting Gretel with it. Harry could feel the pain of the strap. The father kept beating her. As bad as that pain was, though, was the cruel words he screamed as he beat her. "You are stupid and worthless. I should have thrown you into a ravine. Why should I raise another man's worthless brat?" Gretel fell down from the pain. The strap turned her arms, legs, back, anywhere it touched red. Then wounds opened up. The scene jumped ahead in time, and Harry could feel how Gretel was crippled by the pain, and when her mother put the salve on her wounds, it felt like the strap was stinging her again. The scene changed again, and the father is enraged, screaming she is lazy, and her injuries are not severe enough that she should get out of doing chores. If she doesn't get up, he'll give her another lashing. Harry felt the pain of her efforts to walk and to do her chores. He felt the fear when she dropped a plate and broke it, which caused her father to grab a brush and beat her with it, inflaming the already existing wounds. Gretel's scream echoed in Harry's ears. The music changed, becoming more gloating, more victorious. Harry sees the family's dinner classes, and the liquid inside them is glowing green. The family is tied up, looking groggy. Gretel's warming some things in the fire, and she approaches her father with a wicked smile. His eyes widen, and then he screams as she burns him. Her mother screams, as does her older sister. Her brother, who is just a toddler, seems to be unconscious, possibly already dead. The scene changes, and Gretel picks up a sculpture of a smiling gnome. Harry can feel the weight of it. He can feel how unearthly strong Gretel feels as she lifts it up and smacks her father in the head with it. She keeps hitting him, blood spattering everywhere. She finally cracks his head open and reveals some brain matter. When she finally stops, he is dead, and Harry feels her exhilaration. She goes to her piano to play a song in honor of the occasion, being certain to record it on the nearby ham radio. This time she sings coordinates to her house to the music. However, her mother starts screaming over Gretel. Harry feels Gretel's annoyance. He sees her take the gnome and bash her mother in the head. The song came to an end, and so did the visions in Harry's head. He blinked. The other children were staring at him expectantly. I liked your song, he finally said, not knowing what else to say. Gretel smiled. Thank you. I've always been proud of it. It was my best work. Art is very important to Mr. Boogie, a boy named Michael said. It is another way we honor him. He always chooses kids with artistic souls. Harry frowned. But I'm not really artistic. Nicole shook her head and pulled out a piece of paper. It was the drawing he had made that had gotten him into trouble at school. That isn't true, Harry, Emma replied. That picture is very good. I'm very flattered that you chose to draw me. How did you get that? Harry asked. The children didn't answer. Their attention was diverted to staring at a spot behind Harry. When he turned, he saw Mr. Boogie by the basement stairs. He gestured, and Nicole brought him the picture. He stared at it, then looked up at Harry. The eyes in his sockets glowed, and the mouth deepened into a smile. Mr. Boogie likes your drawing too, Emma said, putting a hand on Harry's shoulder. He is very pleased with you. Emma didn't need to tell him this, for Harry could feel it. He felt his face became flushed. He was overwhelmed by the feeling of approval from an adult. Well, whatever Mr. Boogie was. It was something that he never felt before, but suddenly a hunger to have more of it rose up in Harry's soul. His eyes stung with tears. From out of the Mr. Boogie's shadow, another girl stepped out. Mr. Boogie indeed had a lot of children. She walked up to Harry holding out a canister. Hello, my name is Samantha, and I made this movie.